So point number 5 is intonation. So I already talked about this in the other video, but anyway, the intonation is basically how much of a priority is it to you? So I know how I practice, I know how my colleagues practice. I've seen all my colleagues warm up at a certain point, or when we're gigging, we're about to perform or something, we're at a concert, there's always a little bit of downtime. So I see what everyone does and what I do, and basically among professionals, we check our intonation in a number of ways. An easy one, like I'll just, I guess, take the beginning of the Beethoven Romance in F, since I just posted a few of those practice play long videos. But the first note, and we're constantly tuning our instrument all throughout our practice. So even me, I tend to play my F a little bit low sometimes if I don't just check myself, and lots of violinists do, a lot of students do. For violinists, C natural, F natural, these tend to get a bit too low. Flats like B flat, E flat, sometimes they tend to get too low. So we want to be careful with certain pitches. Like for us, G, D, A, and E should be a no-brainer, but even those we get a bit off. So that's my first note. So even this one, I might check that one. Even though I'm just doing a turn, this is just an ornament, I want to make sure my G has a beautiful just, ring and shine to it, that it's not too low or too high. Notice how I'm not really caring about my bowing right now. I know what the bowing is. I've already memorized it. It's no problem. So I just free up everything. I'm not really sticking to a set tempo. I'm stopping on notes if I want to. So right now, you can tell my whole focus is on intonation. So that's what I do. Also here, so right there, I might check that fifth, and then I also might check this F, right, with the C. Make sure you're not tightening up when you're doing this. There's a perfect intonation right there. I settled on it. I usually tell my students to do the 2-second rule, because you might find it, but your finger just does a teeny little lean, and then you've lost it already. So it's very, very sensitive. So you need to hold it absolutely still for 2 solid seconds if you found the right intonation. That is the rule I give myself and my students. And anyway, so what you saw was a combination of myself checking against open strings, right? And then I checked myself using double stops. So, if I'm playing a passage and I noticed I used 2 strings, you just pick 2 notes from the 2, 1 note each from each string that are going to sound good, right? So like perfect fourths, perfect fifths, even augmented fifths sound like minor sixths. So a minor sixth you can tune up, a major sixth you can tune up. You can tune any interval, honestly, if you have a good ear. But even tritones, even major seconds, minor seconds, major sevenths, right? You can tune all of these. I have a video talking about practicing scales with drones, and that kind of gives you an example of all of those intervals very briefly. But if you haven't seen it, you might be interested in that. But anyway, that's what we do. So even if there's a passage that has just a bunch of notes kind of meandering around, I go and I make sure, like if I just played a G here, that my next G sounds in tune. Number 6 is vary the articulation. So basically what that means is that we don't want to sound like, always this type of sound. Sometimes we might want to have more of a definition, right, or the end of our sound, right, or you might want to have a swell or a decay, but mainly it's usually the type of beginning of the note. So an articulation in music always reminds me of letters, like consonant sounds. So we have the aspirated sounds, like t, p, right? So k, especially the K to me is a pretty strong articulation that's useful in violin. I know there's a group of violinists who don't like to make that sound on the violin, but I feel that if you're playing in a large hall, right, and you're not recording, maybe if you're playing for a recording like Deutsche Grammophon or something, you don't want to do that. I understand that because a microphone is so close to the instrument. But when you're playing in a large hall and it's very live hall, you need a bit more definition. And a lot of times we can create the illusion that we are doing more dynamics just by changing the articulation. So you want to think about that. We don't want to play every single thing like the same. So a good example is like the Suzuki Book 2 long, long ago. I personally like to play depending on the day, I might make it more right, softer, or like minuet in G. Or Vercini jig, right? I'm doing very different things with my bow on, different notes and different styles. You can kind of see a bit of variety right there, or the beginning of the Saint-Saëns Violin Concerto in B minor. So that is, very legato and connected. So anyway, that's what I see a lot in student players, that they'll just kind of bring their bow back and forth and not really think about what type of definition. So it's a wonderful new world that opens up to you if it's something you haven't thought about yet. So it's really fun. Hope you work on that. And then the number 7 is to have a broad color palette. So this goes back to the thing that I talk about all the time. I have a lot of other videos on tone color and tone production, the 3 elements of tone production: bow weight, bow speed, contact point. And so varying these things makes a big difference. So I highly recommend you go and take a look at those, because I'm not going to spend too long on that right now. But definitely you want to have a very warm sound, like, my favorite is humoresque, to teach to beginners or early intermediates, right? Because you have that dark section. I'm kind of exaggerating a bit. But the beginning is very... it's very kind of sweepy. And so I think the color palette has a lot to do with dynamics. That's kind of why I don't really teach dynamics only by itself, if that makes sense. I do a little bit. I feel obligated. I should teach the student to observe the markings on the page. So when I want to get them in the habit of, just looking at the markings on the page, then I will. But hopefully by then, and usually by then, I try to introduce these early on. I at least ask them, what highway should we be using? Should we use highway 3? It's right in the center, right? Or closer to the bridge, or closer to the fingerboard. So it just gives you a bit more of an idea. And we already know, because we've talked about it before, that hopefully, right, that each highway has kind of a character or personality to it. And so you can think about that. So number 8 is the phrase dictates the bow use, like how we command the bow, instead of the bow use dictating the phrase. So I often see, like for example, I'm going to play a cello piece, a viola piece on the violin. The suite, the famous suite, the prelude. If you play the original bowing, it's 3 notes in a slur and then everybody else separate. So you can see that quickly I'm getting stuck near the tip. So if you want to get a beautiful sound, which you definitely want to be, bringing out the bass note, right? Then you're going to have to figure out how to make the bow work for you and not the bow making you the slave, right? And then you get trapped, and then you're making the dynamics and the phrase and the shape in that, whatever the bow does. So it just sounds bad, it just sounds like blah, because there isn't much you can do anymore. So you definitely want to find a way. You want to find a way to get back towards the lower half of your bow. And so that's just a quick idea. I wish I could think of a better idea right now, but for some reason I cannot get this video finished because my camera keeps stopping on me. So anyway, I want to get this wrapped up before my camera does it for like the 5th time now. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. So just think about, maybe record yourself and play that passage, because if you feel like I'm not really sure what's wrong with it. I hope I've given you plenty of food for thought. I hope it's helpful. And I was just thinking this would be a fun thing to do, but now I realize, thank you so much for the feedback you've given, that it's kind of a good thing, and it seems to be helpful. So I hope this was a good discussion, and if you think I've left something out, then please comment down below, and I will keep brainstorming to see what else would be practical, a list for you that I can add on to this, so that you can kind of go through this checklist and work on these things yourself. So have a great day.